Greetings! I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I'm going to build this huge, mighty looking fighting vehicle. As you can clearly see, this is a Polski TKD. How's that for proper pronunciation?
Dreadful, Herbert! You should feel bad!
This is a 72nd scale kit from First to Fight, intended for their wargame, Rezhizhen 1939. The back of the box has most of the usual stuff, though no instructions. If you need them, there are some in the magazine, or you can find them on First to Fight's website. For convenience, I've added a link in the description. Inside the box we find two sprues. These are very nice and neat, with good detail. The first, or maybe second First to Fight kit I ever built was a TKD, the regular version, not the open-top SPG one this kit builds, and you can see the whole top for that model on this first sprue. At least we know the lower parts will go together nicely, like that first TKD did. The second sprue has all the bits we need to make this an SPG. There are some internal details, and a little gun. There are some small, potentially easy to break parts here, but if you're careful, you should be fine. I was able to get this built without breaking anything, and so can you. The gun is even slide molded, and so is the steering wheel. I think that's a nice touch. Drilling out small guns like this is kind of tricky and a bit annoying. There are no decals included, but we do of course get the magazine. You heard the way I butchered the name of this thing earlier. Obviously I still can't read Polish. But there are some pictures, and even I can read pictures, and even more helpful, there are instructions, and another painting guide. It is the same as the one on the back of the box, just a little bit bigger. Okay, now it's time to glue some bits of plastic together. First, I attach the track sets to the lower hull part. There are guide pins, so you just have to let them do their job, and everything should be fine. I did have to apply a little bit of pressure, but I would avoid applying too much pressure. I think these would break rather easily. On the rear of the hull, I add this tow hook thing. I can't actually remember if there are any guides for these, I can't see them in the video, but either way, it should be mounted in the center of the plate here. And here's where it starts being different from the other TKD. I install the base for the interior. The instructions seem to want all of the detail parts to be added to this first, but it made more sense to me to add the plate first, and then the easily bumped and broken parts later. The engine for this vehicle will be partly exposed, and it does need some assembly. It's made up of 3 parts, which go together fairly easily. Why not then install it? It goes here, toward the rear, between the 2 seats with the little pipe thing facing rearward. I then add the gear stick, and I would suggest installing this straight as the instructions show, not off to the side like I did. It kind of interfered with the gun mount later on. It's not a big deal, just something to be aware of. The steering wheel comes next. There's a small mounting hole for it in front of the driver's seat. It is easily installed, but also easily bumped out of place, so I guess be careful not to bump it. Next, a couple of rectangles. The one on the left seems to be a radiator. It's got a grill on the front, and a space for a fan at the rear. The one on the right is, I don't know, a fuel tank? A box in which to store Polish snacks? Either way, both of them are easy to install. I then install this upper hull segment, I guess you might call it. It is obviously a very cut down upper hull. It was a little bit fiddly to kajigger around the steering wheel and boxes, but it does go on. If I built this again, I might put this on before the internal parts. I think it would be ever so slightly easier. It needed a fair bit of pressure to eliminate gaps, which would also be a bit easier to do before adding the steering wheel. On the right hand side, I install this what I'm assuming is an ammo rack. I add the sides of the fighting compartment next. Or would you call this a casemate, or is that for enclosed vehicles? Maybe it doesn't matter, maybe I'm waffling. What does matter is these parts go on relatively easily, though I did have to cut a tiny bit of the mounting tabs off to get them to fit into the slot. I test fitted with the front part, just to make sure modifying the tab didn't cause the part to sit out of place, and it doesn't seem to have. I let that bond for a bit while I cleaned up the next set of parts, which include this rear part. It sort of covers up the fact that there's no fan in the radiator. I know having no fan is horrible, but let's keep that our little secret. Next, the front part goes on. It did take a bit of kajiggering and some extra glue and pressure to eliminate gaps, but eventually it's in place good enough. It's not quite perfect, but it does the job. I followed that by adding the mount for the gun. The instructions seemed to want this to be put on a bit later, but I figured giving it a bit of time to bond and therefore have some strength to it was probably a good idea. This is where that gear stick was a bit in the way. It's not the worst thing ever, of course. It would just eliminate a minor inconvenience to mount it straight in the first place. Now that we've got the mount, it's probably a good idea to have the gun, and this is pretty easy to put together. There are 3 parts. 2 frames, I guess you might call them, and we sandwich the gun part in between them. You could probably carefully glue this so that it could move, but I've chosen to bond it all solidly in place. There is still an opening in the whole rear, so this part goes over that. Now the missing radiator fan is hidden for good, and nobody will ever know. Next, I attached the exhaust, and this was a little bit fiddly. There isn't really anything to mount it to. The pipe part should connect with the pipe on the engine, and the muffler sits on the back there. It's not the most difficult thing in the world, it just takes a bit of careful nudging. I follow that with these spare road wheels. There isn't anything to mount these onto either, so it gets eyeballed. That looks like a good spot for them. There's a small headlamp that goes on the front left of the fighting compartment, which I almost forgot, but I didn't. It's small, so it's a bit fiddly, but at least there's a little recess for it to mount into, which makes it a bit easier. I then join the gun shield onto the gun. There isn't quite keying, but the parts do sort of fit together in a sensible way. I think I got it right. The final step is to put the assembled gun into its mount. This isn't hard, though there is a fair bit of play to it, so make sure it's not tilted to one side or anything like that. There's enough contact area for it to be glued reasonably solidly in place, you just don't want it to be on a weird angle when it is bonded. And that's it. The TKD self-propelled 47mm gun in 70-second scale from first to fight is now completed, and a cute little shooty boy it is. This is intended as a wargaming piece, and as I say with pretty much all the first to fight kits, it's pretty well detailed for what it is, and also a little bit more delicate than I'd really want in a gaming piece personally, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It does mean they work really well as display models. Not only does it look nice, but it was a pretty fun little kit to build. It didn't take a lot of time either. I was able to get this built in one stream. I do faff about a bit, so if you really wanted, you could probably get this done in under half an hour. Not that it's a race or anything like that. Anyway, I'm rather happy with this kit, and kind of surprised I didn't break anything. I will continue to buy first to fight kits, so if you're into that, keep an eye out for more. If you want to watch me build kits like this one live, why not drop by next time I'm live streaming? I do that both here on YouTube and on Twitch. There's even a schedule posted over on Twitch. Links in the description. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comments section below. Subscribe if you want to see more, and if you really like what I do, why not consider supporting over on Patreon or Ko-fi. Take care of yourselves, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.